Hey, yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Evan over here with MF Pearl. We're here live at MFHQ. Disclaimer. Live at MFHQ is in fact not recorded live and is actually a pre-recorded program. This episode contains tastefully explicit content, so feel free to do what you wish with that information. If you could ever be so kind to like, follow, and subscription for you, would go a very long way. New episodes, everyone's in the back to the show. We're here during one of our earliest episodes. This is the pre-season of the podcast. We're feeling everything out, filling out that intro. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a little rough around the edges, but we'll perfect it as we go on episode by episode. Well, we do got our first earliest guest. He might not be the first release. You don't need to know that shit. Don't even matter. But we're gonna give you the inside scoop because that's what live at MFHQ is. We're over here doing deep talks with our guests to go ahead and get the inside scoop on how they go ahead and go from point A to point B within their career. And along the way, we just have good talks where we learn a little bit about the background and the stuff that you don't necessarily hear every day. We got our first guest. I want to go and introduce him. He's a great friend of mine. I went ahead and met him through the church. You may know the church if you're a creative in El Paso. One half. Give it up for Gabe Fernandez. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me, man.
How are you?
Dude, I'm amazing. And I got to tell you, it's so awesome to be like an early guest because you and I have known each other for how long now? Like a couple years?
I'd say a couple. And I'd say we met on, for sure, the event that we met at is easier to remember, which is Chalk the Block.
Yeah, dude. So it's just cool to
I think it was 2 years ago.
yeah, it's cool because I've heard you talk about projects you want to work on, and I think I've seen like the the big picture of what you're trying to accomplish, and so it's pretty awesome to be on and get to be a part of it.
Yeah, man.
Excited, man.
You as well. Every time I always learn about what you're doing and what you're up to, I'm always excited to see it. Because usually, most of the time, it ends up getting fulfilled too. Like, there's always an update.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people where, they have things that they're trying to work on. And then
Mhm.
you talk to them a little bit later, and it's kind of still in just like the talks and the works.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm always happy to talk to you about because there's always an update. And
Yeah.
I'm inspired to go ahead and try to accomplish that as well. I don't always want to leave, like, and then update someone, and then I guess there's nothing that moved forward since the
Yeah.
last time we talked. Because
Yeah.
then I don't know. Part of me
Forward
feels like the
motion.
value of the talk ends
Mhm.
up going down because there's nothing new. There's nothing new going on.
Interesting.
That's why I always love our talks because there's always something new to talk about.
Yeah, dude. We've had some amazing talks for sure.
I think it took. I don't know. I don't know how many times we've hung out at that point, but it took the Tin Man on Airway before I had the whole click of how you've been combining your
Mm.
industries.
Yeah, yeah.
One other introduction before we get into that is our main man, the other half of MF, running the cameras. He's gonna be here every episode, just chiming in whenever we got some just juicy talks that everybody got to chime in on. You know what I mean?
We want another beer.
But we got the other half of MF Pearl, director, editor, David Vasquez.
Hey everyone.
Now, the click that I'm talking about when I had that sudden realization was the combination of behavioral therapy with project management.
Yeah,
And you saw me get excited when
I
we had.
did. Yeah, I did.
So I don't know. I mean, what I love about this episode too is because there's a lot less meetups between you and David, so there's still a lot of opportunities for you to like go over it without it feeling like we've been going over it again.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um, how's that been going? Because I know the biggest realization that had me was when you told me that lately you've been, sort of serving as, I mean, unofficially, obviously, but like it's like the concept is like you're sort of being almost a therapist for these entrepreneurs. You're sitting down with them, you're hearing them, but you're applying business strategy to their meetings. So like they kind of, it's very similar to what the church, at
Mhm.
least my experience with the church.
Yeah.
You are like a source for someone to brain dump,
Mm-hmm.
but just your background and what you're able to like put that in together.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, it's interesting, man. So
I think it's
like
niche.
yeah, for sure it's niche. So I have a long background in education, over 10 years, worked in education in various capacities. But the last 7 years, I ran an organization with one of my best friends, Frank Luna, the church, which you mentioned. And I'm born and raised here in El Paso, and I've always kind of felt like we're a little bit isolated from the rest of the world. And I know a lot of other people in El Paso who can attest to like we have so much talent here. There's so many talented, amazing filmmakers, musicians, and artists, and everything in between. And so, I've always had this deep sense that I want to use my skill set to try to impact the community that I'm in. And so, Frank and I partnered up and started working with artists here in El Paso. And it started off very small and very like kind of organic, but just trying to help artists get structure behind what they're doing. If you know anybody who's a creative person, they always have a lot of projects going on. They have a million ideas, a million things going on. And so sometimes structure is like the last thing. It's like bouncing from one thing to another, one idea to another.
Yeah.
And so I have this interesting license in a field called applied behavior analysis. And I study a lot about human behavior and how it works and how you establish habits and routines and how you change behavior. And there's a particular field of skills called executive function, which is basically just all the skills that you need to achieve a goal. So long-term planning, emotional control, persistence, taking initiative, all those kinds of things. And when I first got into this field, I was doing a lot of work with individuals with disabilities, so people in their 20s and 30s that are on the spectrum, who are in college or just getting their first job, and they need training on like how do you navigate that world? How do you navigate this complex world when maybe you've never learned certain skills before?
Those are separate descriptions of people, or like you worked with people that were on the spectrum trying to get a job. I'm
All
obviously
of it.
some of them it's combined. Like
No, yeah, all of it. I've worked with a huge wide range of people, man. People with disabilities. I've worked with like entrepreneurs that run multiple companies and they're just all over the place and they need structure. But I've seen like firsthand like just how powerful it can be when you give someone structure and workflow and like creative process for them to ideate and for them to plan things out effectively and like work with a team. I'm just really fascinated with like the skills that go into putting good work out. Like there's a reason why certain musicians and certain filmmakers and certain entrepreneurs and certain people are just really consistent, man. They're constantly putting good stuff out. It's not luck. It's it's strategy. There's reasons why they're putting out the work that they're at. And so I'm just fascinated by that. I'm fascinated with the creative process and workflow and how do you go from idea to finished project and what are all the steps in between. So I've found myself in this interesting. I got into this field almost by accident, man. But through the church, working with artists, just one after another, like I met hundreds of people in the last like 7 years, and I've seen so many things, so many situations, enough to know like the commonalities.
hmm
Someone will start to talk to me about their project and what they have going on and their challenges, and it's almost like I have an archetype in my head of like, okay, I've heard this before,
yeah.
and here's what I think might be, challenging or whatever. But yeah, so today the kind of work that I do is I still work with a lot of individuals. I would say like half the work that I do is with people in their 20s that are again autism, ADHD, some kind of developmental disability that they're trying to get a job, they're trying to succeed in college. The other 50% of the work that I do is with people that are running multiple organizations or entrepreneurs that are balancing a lot of projects. And it sounds like they're two very different fields, but
Yeah, I was
there's
about to
actually
say.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
commonalities
there's a lot
there,
of overlap.
a lot of overlap because really what you're trying to do at the end of the day is change behavior. You're trying to help people make important changes in their life. And so, yeah, that's essentially how it works. Most of my clients that I work with that are on the organizational entrepreneurship side, they're it's great 'cause it's remote. I can do it from pretty much anywhere. But I have clients that are in New York, LA. I have a client that I just got started working with in Washington.
Are there any clients on that side, on the entrepreneur side, that are from here, or do you kind of
Mm,
strictly have that
yeah,
remote?
no, I've worked with some clients here.
Like currently?
Yeah, there's a guy that I'm working with. I don't want to mention any names
Nah, you're
because
good.
some I'm under NDA, but yeah, I've worked with a lot of people. I mean, I've worked with a lot of musicians here and a lot of filmmakers, like a lot of creative people here in El Paso. The
Would you
entrepreneur,
consider that aside from the church?
most of that work was through the
I
church.
feel you.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think artists are like some of the most important parts of a community, dude. I mean, if you think about there's a study that they did like I want to say maybe 10 years ago where they surveyed a bunch of people and they asked them like what are the things that make you want to make a city your home? Like what are the things that make you because like we travel around to different cities and places and when when we go on vacation or whatever, but like what would make you want to make a place your home? And the things that people mentioned were like um, is there a culture of openness in the community, right? Is the community itself beautiful? Are there a lot of things to do? And artists are kind of the people that are the engine behind those things. They're beautifying the city, they're making things to do, they are kind of fostering a culture of openness.
Mhm.
So I think any community that really is invested like in its long-term growth and prosperity, like artists have to be, they have to be a part of that.
Mhm.
And so I've seen firsthand over the last 7 years just how important they are, but also the challenges that people have. You know, when um, you're trying to be a musician and you're trying to make a living being a musician, that's really, really hard, man. That's really challenging. And there's a whole set of challenges that come with finances and like project management and trying to figure out how you fund your projects and then being consistent. Like how many people have you met that are like working on an album or a film or something and they get halfway through and then they can't finish it,
Burned
right?
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not anybody's, it's challenging. It's challenging to be an artist and to be a creative entrepreneur is really, really challenging. And so I just think that, communities got to support their artists, but I think also people that have knowledge and skills and how business works and they want to contribute to their community. I think supporting the artistic community is an incredible way to do that. So I'm really grateful that I gotten to do that. I don't work with a lot of creatives currently. I'm getting more into like the impact space. Like one of my biggest clients that I have right now is based out of New York City. They're a social design agency in the climate and sustainability space. And that has been like a whole other like Pandora's box that I've popped
Yeah.
open,
It's a whole new direction, honestly.
Yeah, and I love learning, man, and I love cracking open new worlds and just like exploring and learning and getting upskilled. And so I think one of the cool things about the work that I do is I get to meet a lot of different types of people. I get to work with a lot of different types of organizations. And yeah, ultimately it's just about you have this idea, you have this concept, and you want to execute at a certain level. And how do we help you do that? Is it a project management thing? Is it a personal workflow thing? Is it a creative process thing? All of that is behavior. All of that is about behavior change, and that's kind of where my work is kind of right now.
Do you see yourself niching down to only organizations of impact at some point? Like you wouldn't even allow a new world to crack open just because of how like can your career within that space get
Mhm.
so successful that you're like, nah, okay, I'm done cracking open worlds
Man, I don't know if I'll ever be done
because you'll
cracking
be
open
able to just
worlds.
explore outside of work. You know, at some
Yeah.
point your career will be so
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Financially, what's the word?
Sturdy.
There you go, sturdy. There you go.
Sturdy.
To the
No.
point where you could just, I'm gonna go crack open worlds without feeling like I gotta get paid for it. You know.
Yeah, man. I mean,
But to do that, you became such a specialist within the impact
yeah,
world, and you stopped,
for sure, for sure.
expanding your work.
Yeah, dude, that's a great question. So I think, so I'm 32 right now. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like the older that I get, the more in tune I'm getting with like how what you do with your time, especially your work, the thing that you call work, is like so important. There's this organization called 80,000 Hours, and they study and research careers of today that have the most capacity to make an impact on the world, right? There's this movement called the effective altruism movement, which is all about like, okay, you want to give money to charity or you want to do something good for the world, but how do we do it effectively, right? Because you can give money to two different organizations and it's not going to get spent to the same efficacy, right? So 80,000 hours, this organization is all about like, okay, if you're an average person, you get 80,000 hours of your career time, right? The average person in their career from start to finish is roughly 80,000 hours. And I learned about this organization a couple years ago, and one of the things that they mentioned is organizational work, helping startups and nonprofits that are trying to make an impact, helping the structure and like the execution of that is like so important, man, because again, a lot of times in organizations you have people that are on different sides of you have people who are like hyper technical, hyper creative. Some people are really good with people, some people are not so good with people. And to be able to bring all that together and make productive workflows and like to help execution, it's really important, man. Project managers, people who do like organizational type work is really important. And so I'm getting more in tune with this idea that like I really want my time, my career what I do to make like a really positive impact on the world. And I think I'm still sort of figuring out what that is. Um, but I know that, yeah, I know that for sure I would love to be able to just say I only work with organizations that are trying to do something,
Yeah.
social impact. But I still work with a lot of, like today, I still work with a lot of, there's at least two clients I have that are just marketing agencies. And that's also really important work too. Their clients are doing really amazing things. And I don't know if I'm at a point where I'm ready to just like pull the plug, but I definitely know that as I'm getting older and I'm kind of like getting more experience, like I definitely want to niche down on
Yeah. Like,
social impact, environmental impact. I think,
yeah, your work will just slowly focus in on itself.
I think so. And I think it's happening naturally. I think just kind of following my nose, I'm kind of figuring it out. I think I used to freak out a lot about like, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I working on the right stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I still do. But I think that if I'm just constantly leading with like, is this good for people? Am I helping people? Am I doing something purposeful? Um, yeah, you can't go wrong.
That's true. I would say I could even make it easier and say I think as long as I'm providing somewhat of a foundational, like you can easily define it objectively as like a service. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But I try not to boil it down to that because I agree with you. I like to go and I want to be of impact. I have such a legacy
Mhm.
complex. I need to have
Yeah.
I need to be remembered. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that what I'm doing is not just a service, but also it serves one certain person, but also I guess everything I'm trying to do, I want it to be on a community level.
hmm
Like MF Pro is the biggest reflection of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're filming an artist and we give them an episode, but really what we're trying to do is establish a stronger music community here. And if our contribution is by filming sessions, then that's how we contribute. Obviously we don't have property money to host big shows like on a regular basis. It's like a whole
Yet.
thing. It's a whole ordeal. Yeah, yeah, but it's like a whole ordeal right now. So just knowing that like since year one that we started, we've been like completely trying to make sure that we're like we can say that we've been accomplishing that goal,
hmm
and it's just slowly getting into like a bigger scale.
Yeah, man. And dude, to be able to use your, like a good friend of mine always says that like each Avenger, all the Avengers have like a superpower.
Yeah,
Like we each have a superpower, and like it's kind of like your obligation as a human to use that superpower for something.
when you talked about artists right now and how important they were to communities,
hmm
I've always had this theory about how I think the meaning of life, I think the purpose of life is to further, like to extend the lifespan, like the yeah, yeah, to extend the lifespan of your species in some sort of way. Like
Wow.
even if you just contributed to the smallest factor. And so
Wow.
doctors, it's pretty clear cut, they help
hmm
save lives, they help try
hmm
to find cures, all the works and all that stuff. But if you finally get down to artists, oh, if you're going alphabetical order, it's pretty early. But if you do artists, I think because at the end of the day, doctors get depressed,
hmm Yeah, we all do.
therapists get depressed, professional sports athletes get depressed, but even they kind of fall into the artist sense because I think when I say artist in this theory, I'm thinking entertainer. I feel as if um, when those dudes are getting depressed and all that, who do they go to to like get a smile? Either a
Yeah.
comedian or like good music, or
Yeah.
they go watch sports, or whatever. So I feel like every like artists, like that's I don't know. When I defined it as that, I really was thinking, you know what? As an artist, that's when I felt so comfortable within my direction.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go through this artist shit. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be as creative as I want.
Yeah, and I think like there's a couple of points. First one is that like, you could have this conversation about what is art and what is real art and what is a real artist, but Seth Godin has a really interesting quote where he says, work he says if you have to do it, it's work. If you get to do it, it's art. And I think that says a lot about what art is and what art isn't.
Mhm.
The person who like wakes up in the morning and decides like, you know what, like I want to go do this thing that no one's telling me to do. I want to go do this thing. Yeah, I want to go help, or I want to go create this thing, or I want to go um, introduce these two people because I think they can have like an amazing collaboration or something. Like in a sense, that's all kind of art. And like I've met a lot of people that do things that wouldn't be traditionally called art, but the precision and like the methodical approach that they take to do it is art, man. Like, so I don't know. I think that art is really, it's not just like stuff that it's not just music and film and singing and rapping and all that, but it's like anytime that somebody just has like an idea that they want to execute that no one's making them do, that's art, man. It's
Well, you remember the video I showed you, the dude who makes hats?
yeah, oh yeah, dude, 100%. Who's telling him to do
Most
that?
people would just call that, what would they call it? Like a craft? You know?
A craft.
It's like work, but he's probably just making hats for the fuck of it.
Exactly,
You know?
and it's
So,
just something he does,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I've been trying to look at everybody, and I've been trying to see the art that within everything that they're doing, because that's kind of what I want. I can call it a stretch, call it a reach at some point, but that's what I wanted to explain as the commonality between all guests.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to find is like the that art form, that flow state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
that part within your career where you just kind of like, oh, this is it's like ballet right now, dude. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So I've been trying to just find that within any sort of thing, and I think some it's very surface level.
Mhm.
If you're a visual painter or something, it's clear what the art is and everything. But if you're somebody who flips a house, you got to have a good eye for
Yeah.
architecture. Like the artwork is being able to see a piece of shit kitchen and like see how it's gonna flip around into something nice.
Yeah.
Being able to understand like the space and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like a combination of pattern recognition. Like I play a lot of chess, and like beginning chess players have to like work really hard to look at the board and like, oh shit, like what is this piece and like how does it move and like what. But like a grandmaster is someone who's like incredible. They can just look at the board and it's almost like their brain can't help but find the right move.
Yeah, you seen the Queen's Gambit?
Yeah, of course.
You
Yeah,
need to sit on the
yeah,
scene.
exactly. So like I think there's an element of that. It's like this sort of like it's pattern recognition, but it's almost like unconscious.
Mhm.
So there's these they talk about these phases of development when you're learning how to do something, right? And you start at unconscious incompetence. So you're not even aware of how incompetent you are when you first start something, right? And then at a certain point you become consciously incompetent. So you're like, okay, I'm getting better, but I kind of know that I'm still not that good, and
You have a
I'm
better
aware of what those
gauge,
gaps
yeah.
are. And then you enter the realm of unconscious, or what is it? Conscious competence. Like, okay, I've developed these skills, I know where I'm at, but then it turns into, at the highest level, it turns into unconscious competence, where you're just almost like you're speaking a whole other language. It's like part of your Josh Waitzkin, chess player, he does martial arts. He talks about how like the essence of like any art is just communicating this thing that is uniquely you through this medium. And the thing that we all see as people is just like the thing that you created, but only you know what that sort of like that whatever it is, that essence that you're putting in it, it's unconscious. It's you, but it's you creating through this medium. I don't know, man. I think that's super fascinating. And I think if you can look at anybody, and there's gonna be an art to the way they do things.
What stage are you at in that with Notion?
With Notion, dude.
Yeah.
God, we gotta talk about Notion. If people don't know what Notion is, I'm sorry.
That's your flow state.
That's
your
it's
flow
one of
state,
my
man.
flow states, man.
I started falling in love with databases when I got into it.
An artist said, "I'm falling in love with databases."
Yeah,
That's
dude.
how you know my work. I've done something right.
It's got impact. Yeah.
It's got impact.
It can go ahead and touch like even the most disorganized souls.
Oh, man.
Nah, dude. That's like your biggest tool, I would say, within
Yeah.
project management, right? Do you ever try to like build that same stuff? Obviously, maybe you got limits, but does anybody ever just tell you like, hey, we're already so integrated in Slack? For
Oh yeah. I have clients that are using like stuff like ClickUp.
So do you have to kind of work
Kind
with
of
it?
adapt. Yeah. What you learn though is like the principles are the same.
Yeah.
The software is what changes. Like a good designer, a really good designer who has a good eye, you can give them any program, Figma or like Photoshop or whatever.
Damn.
They're gonna make it happen.
Damn.
Like yeah, there's a technical curve,
This
but
goes against all my goals right now. So hard.
no, yeah, but it is true. I love Notion, man, because like there's a writer named Tiago Forte.
Yeah.
He came up with this he wrote this book called Building a Second Brain. It's like his brand, right? And just this idea that like all day we have all this information that's coming at us, like things we want to read and podcasts we want to listen to and videos we want to watch and emails and calls and texts and just like all this stuff is coming at us. And the technical term is cognitive load, right? It's kind of like your random access memory on your computer. You can only handle so much. And when we're constantly trying to hold all that stuff in our head and like, oh, I got to do that and I got to do that and I got to write this thing and like, oh, I had this idea for this. If it's all in your head, dude, you're kind of maxing out your random access memory. Like you're kind of maxing it out, and it's
Not even
hard
just to remember stuff, but just to like keep doing like more multitasking.
just to be
You should
creative.
always I know I don't want to like jump ahead of where you're about to be going, but
Yeah.
you should be reserving that RAM for actual like hands-on stuff that you're doing, not
Nailed it. Nailed it.
remembering shit.
Exactly. Yeah. David Allen says the mind is for generating ideas, not for holding on to them. You know. So Notion is like one of the few apps that I've found that allows you enough customization where you can build pretty much any kind of workspace that you want. Because if you think about it, let's say you're a writer, you need like a place to capture ideas, to curate research, to take notes. You need a pipeline on like, here are the pieces I'm currently writing. Here are the
You
pieces.
gotta
I'm writing
categorize
up.
it.
You got to categorize that stuff. You got to create a schedule of like when are you going to publish all that stuff. And some people might think that's overkill, and maybe that's fine. But I think if you're trying to be serious about your work and you're trying to be intentional about like, okay, I want to be a writer and I want to put work out, or I want to be a musician, I want to put music out. The most successful creatives I've ever known, the most successful organizations I've ever gotten to peek behind the curtain on, like they have really clear, organized ways of doing things, and a lot of times they're using tools like Notion, like Asana, like ClickUp, to keep all that stuff organized. Because, man, like how does it? The perfect example are marketing agencies that are balancing 20, 30 clients. That's an insane amount of tasks
Yeah.
and work and communication and like accountability and deadlines, and no one can hold all that stuff in their head, dude. Nobody. You have to have reliable systems to organize all that information. And so Notion is like my go-to tool in my arsenal. I've been able to build incredible, like crazy workspaces for clients. And yeah, so if you're listening to this and you've never heard of the program Notion, it's free. Notion.so. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but I mean, God, I mean, you could probably speak to it too, because since you've used it, like, I'm curious to know from your end, what was the thing that made you, oh, like, let me try this out. Like, what were the things that you saw in Notion that were like, okay, this is worth paying attention to?
Mm, I'm not too sure. I think just seeing how you had been filling out a lot of the pages whenever I would go over to Brain Dump with like the early MF stuff,
Yeah.
or like not early, but just MF stuff with our early meetings. But I'd always see that big ass bold title on the top always, and then just knowing that I like needed to get the app pretty much to. I think a better answer is the moment you like I needed to download the shit so I can go ahead and keep up with you guys on the stuff. And I was just like,
Yeah.
well, if I'm gonna like have it already, let me see what's up with this. And then somebody else had told me about it too. So just the fact that it was the second time I'd heard about it, I was just thinking, well, let's see what's up. I liked, and then
Because you
I
like,
got into Ali Abdal,
oh, yes.
and I saw that he was using it, and he had a whole course on it. So
Yeah.
I was just like, all right,
That's right.
let's go course by course, because that's how I learned Webflow. Because
Mhm.
that's when right now when I said that you're going against everything I believe in right now,
Mhm.
like if somebody comes to me and says that they want a website, but they want e-commerce
Mhm.
nowadays, because I've tried it before and it just was a terrible experience. Nowadays I'm
Mm.
thinking like, look, I'm strictly a Webflow designer, but if you do need an e-commerce site, I can maybe hold your hand a little through Squarespace. But that's the whole point of Squarespace, is so that the business owner can kind
Yeah.
of just build it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Notion thing, I take a lot of notes on my
Mhm.
notes app.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like the designer in me. There's a line that I say in a first take episode, right, where I go, it's the graphic designer in me. But
Yeah.
I hate how like chunky the bullet points are on the notes app and stuff, and like
Yeah.
there's no tables, and if it is a table, I can't scroll side to side the way I
Mhm.
can on the mobile app. I use it more on my desktop,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're right. Like it could be as simple as a notes app if you want, which that's kind of what I use it for the most.
Yeah.
Bullet points.
Yeah.
But I'm not over here building like crazy databases all the time. I have like
Yeah.
very simple ones. My most used database is probably that sponsorship thing that I was doing. Like I was just having like follow ups.
Yeah.
Who have I followed up twice with? But now I'm just thinking, yeah, I have multiple ideas within multiple ventures, and at some point I was just like, dude, I'm never gonna do anything. Like,
Yeah.
I need something like this for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes,
Until I could have like a personal freaking assistant. Like,
yeah.
this is a personal assistant.
Exactly, man.
In a way, you still got to input the info, but it's just like, oh, fetch me this. Like, You don't got to fetch it every time.
Yeah,
You can just
command
create a
key.
filter, a
Yeah,
perfectly
yeah,
filtered thing for yourself
exactly.
to just jump to it. It's already
Yeah,
easy.
man. And I was actually talking to a
Dynamic
client.
content. I love anything that has dynamic content.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I was talking to a client today, and he lives in New York City, and he's again creative entrepreneur. He's got a lot of projects going on, but he's at a place right now where he has so much going on that I feel like he's starting to get a little bit like, do I have too much going on? Like, am I spreading myself too thin? Am I kind of like,
Did you consider that imposter syndrome in a way? You start thinking, or is it just like, oh, hold on, did I
interesting.
stack too much on my plate?
Well, I guess it could be imposter syndrome. To me, imposter syndrome is more like you are good at what you do, but you have this incessant feeling that like you're not gonna, or like everyone's gonna find out that you don't know what you're doing, but you really do know what you're doing, you know. And I think a lot of us suffer from that. But this guy, I think he just had so much going on that it was hard for him to separate the signal from the noise, right? Like he put all these things on his plate, and within all that stuff was like one project that was actually the most meaningful and impactful for him. But it was just because he was in the mess, it was hard for him to see that. And once we started to break things down on Notion in terms of like, what are the projects in my life and who are my clients and what are the tasks I need to take care of and what are the things that I want to achieve by the end of next year, I could see like there was just clarity happening for him. And today we had this moment where he was just kind of like, I think I need to drop these three things and only focus on this. And I could just sense like his tone of voice change. Like I could just see the clarity. And so sometimes thinking our way through something in our head is not the best way to solve it or to figure it out. Sometimes we need to make our thinking visual to externalize what we're doing to see the big picture. You know, it's like, I don't know, like going back to chess, like there's some chess players that are so good, they can play entire chess games against somebody in their head, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody can be sitting down playing a game and then somebody just tells them like, okay, this person moved, e4, and they can just like, "Ah, okay, let's go knight six." Like that's
Yeah, just
crazy to
on the
me.
board like
And
that.
yet we try to do that to ourselves all the time. We
I
have
think I
all
do
these
that with, like,
ideas.
Rocket League.
But we try to do it to ourselves all the time, right? We have like all these ideas and projects. Like I don't know how some people can like, I think about film. Dude, film, like there's so many layers and aspects and variables and like it's personnel, it's budgeting, it's creative design, it's writing, it's music, it's art direction, composition, it's all of it all
You
in
could
one.
probably make a whole list right now, like the size that you just made, of like boring logistical stuff before you even get to the fun parts of what goes into a film.
Exactly what I'm
There's
saying.
probably so many steps of just like nasty administrative shit.
Yeah. And there's amazing tools that help you do that kind of stuff. But I think the thing I like about Notion is that it's kind of like a sandbox. You know, I've been able to use it with like college students. I've been able to use it with like
True.
big companies that like
True.
manage like,
You could do it with someone who's not even trying to accomplish something. It's just like a personal life thing.
yeah, like here's a journal. Here's a way to take notes, you know.
Would you say your whole personal setup is the most complex Notion you've made, or would you say it's some clients that you?
Oh man, probably my own.
Yours? Oh, it's
My own.
also had the most time put into it.
Yeah, dude. And I do a lot of different stuff, you know. I'm kind of like I'm really into trading and I play chess and I read a lot of books and I have a lot of interest, and so I've built out these really elaborate systems in Notion to do all that stuff, you know, calculators that'll calculate like all kinds of stuff. It's wild, man.
I think the biggest personal thing that I've used Notion for is just tracking my workouts. Just because the templates, I can load up a table that has sets and
Easy.
like movements and all that stuff real fast.
Yeah.
And then I just pick which one it is. You know, glutes, hamstrings, quads, shoulders. Just tap them as tags.
Yeah.
I have a workout partner, like who joined me on this.
Yeah, dude.
All that shit. So that's probably the one I use the most for like personal. And then when it comes to, I use it a lot for my social media client with Float Insurance. Like I use it a lot for them, but mainly as a journal. Like
Okay.
I have like all the captions written out. I just make sure that they're all written out in bullet point lists, and it just helps me stay organized. With I change the color to yellow once it's been typed out, and I change the color of it to green once it's been posted. Like I use it, bro. I really do, but I don't think I've really. I try not to force myself to use it.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning, remember how much time I was wasting just making databases trying to make the perfect one? I got too exciting to use it. So like I've learned, I don't think I need it that much just yet. I don't think I need, all these crazy systems. At the moment, what I need to do is just make sure that I'm like putting thoughts to notes.
Yeah.
And I don't do that a lot. And so I try to save like my notes app for like lyrics. And I try to use Notion for like actual ideas and just structuring and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. And I know at the end of the day, like the purpose of these tools is not to get good at the tools, right?
You just need it. Yeah, you try to do that, and I think you get lost too much.
Yeah, you get
Just
lost.
need it for what you need it for. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, and I worked with
I just needed to get through that phase real quick.
yeah,
That
yeah, and
honeymoon
learn it,
phase with Notion, you know?
Yeah, because it's easy to get lost in the tools, and like all the little features. But at the end of the day, going back to like the core of what I do, it's like all about behavior change and learning. And if the tools are facilitating that, then yeah, you're doing something right. But yeah, those are amazing. I also discovered another website builder. I think it's called Framer.
Well, you asked me about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was curious if you.
I've been watching well, it's not so much that I've been watching them, but with all my algorithm on YouTube, there will be like Webflow versus WordPress videos, and
Mhm.
Framer's been one of those things that's just been starting to creep up in like the more recent comparison videos.
Yeah,
Um,
one of my clients in New York is using it, so I'm trying to learn it,
yeah.
but it's a little bit of a learning curve, man.
Yeah, dude, those guys start to really have one. Like Webflow has a learning curve as well, but it's because at that point you're no longer doing a template website, but you're also not coding. You're like right in the sweet spot
Yeah,
where it's like,
it's like just on the edge of no code, where like
yeah, but you're also not gonna get burned down and give up immediately.
yeah,
It's like my cousin put it in the terms of Tetris. Like, if you get put on level 1, it's gonna be so boring. You're just gonna give up and you quit. If it's like level 100 and you're not there, you're gonna get frustrated because you just lose. So if you get to a level where it's just challenging enough, and I think that's like the happy medium for anybody with any sort of design or structure, like foundation,
hmm
they'll be able to pick up
yeah,
a no code website builder.
yeah, for sure.
I love Webflow. I'm sure Framer can do it, but I love Webflow because at the end of the day, if you really need a custom website, but you need it on like a specific like host, then at the end of the day, when you visually design it all, you can just export the code. It was building the code
Oh
for
wow,
you in the
that's awesome.
background, and then
That's
you could
awesome.
just put it up. But that thing that's such a rabbit hole because Webflow, of course, people who do know how to code came up in it and started like
Taking
doing
it to a whole
crazy
other
things
level.
with it,
Yeah,
dude.
it's crazy.
You could do crazy things. There's people who rebuild Apple's website in like an hour. They do speed runs of it. It's crazy, bro.
Speed runs. That's
Yeah, I love it,
crazy,
man.
dude.
Um,
Yeah, dude.
I love speed runs. What's his name? I forgot his name. Pop Smoke. He had an album that came out, and Virgil Abloh's the one who designed the cover, but it was like really criticized, and so people were doing speed runs of redesigning the album cover, and it was crazy. They were doing the album cover in like 8 seconds. Like there's people who were like,
Dang,
yeah, it was
that's
crazy.
crazy.
So
Huh?
it's funny, man. But I got that from Twitter. Twitter's one of my favorite things ever. Like it's
Yeah,
so
it's so
hilarious, dude.
fast-paced.
You can find some value, but I'm not gonna lie, man. I see too many people now just trying to make a buck off of like doing here's 10 ways to make $20,000 this year. Like it's like stop,
Yeah,
dude,
man.
stop. Like
That's just the internet now.
nah,
That's just the internet now.
it's crazy, bro. But
But yeah, man, tools. Something I've been like upskilling on lately is like automations and
Mhm.
integrations.
with Notion or just overall,
Notion
any
and just
chance you get,
overall,
yeah.
like Zapier
Yeah, I know
and
Zapier.
Make.
Mm-hmm.
Man, like sometimes I'll have a client that's like, well, what if we did this thing on this app and then it sent this thing to this app and then we like had to do this thing on this, like crazy things that they don't even know like the technical
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure of. And I'm just like, I wonder if you could do that and like building these things out, It's so interesting, man. But just how all this stuff connects now. It's like it's just moving so fast. And then now that we have AI, dude, I don't know if you've seen online, but like there was a guy that I saw that was like he gave a prompt like or no, he took a screenshot of a website. It was like an e-commerce like dashboard, like sales and all this stuff. And he took a screenshot and he threw it into I forget which one. I want to say it was ChatGPT. And he was just like, write the Python code script to make this website.
Dang,
And it nailed it. It was a fully functional website, dude. And it's just it's crazy to think where we're going, man. And I think about young
is
kids.
that art?
I mean, who told him to do that? You know what I'm saying? I think about kids though, man. Like when I was a young kid, like I was really into music,
Mm-hmm.
and hanging out with friends and just jamming and playing instruments and just like. But kids nowadays, man, they have AI, dude, and they have phones. Like little kids have phones. Like they're gonna be so technologically advanced, and it's probably gonna come with its own set of challenges and like drawbacks. But
Serious drawbacks.
I just think about like where kids are gonna be technologically, like by the time they're in high school,
I
dude.
feel like our like attention spans are just gonna continuously get lower and lower. Is that a thing, or are we just tripping?
Well, I think it's
How do you feel
think
about
it's yes
that?
and no,
How do you
man.
feel about attention spans?
I think it's yes and no. I think the thing is like going back to that set of skills I was talking about, executive function. One of them is persistence, right? Persistence is where you continue with something that's difficult, even when it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're willing to keep trying. So it's like I don't know, when you're working on a project and it's not coming out, or like you keep having a glitch and you just can't figure out what's going on. A lot of people will just drop at that point. They're just like, F this, I can't figure this out, and they'll leave it. Somebody who has really good persistence will just keep trying, and they'll try to find another way, and they'll try to find another way. That skill, it can be trained, but I think a lot of people left to their own devices will probably veer more towards the side of like, well, let me just do something else. Let me find something else. Let me not. I don't know. It's hard. It's a great question. Is it actually messing up our attention spans? I don't know, man. There's a writer named Jonathan Haidt who's kind of talking about this right now,
Yeah.
and he's like trying to figure out, like, is social media causing depression? Because we have, apparently, if you look at the numbers, there's like crazy high numbers of depression among teenagers. And it's like, why is it happening? Is it social media? Is it not social media? Like, we can speculate all day long.
Why do you stay away from social media?
Okay,
You don't want your attention span to get fried?
cool. Completely honest. I feel okay. When I did use a lot of social media, I found that I would just like endlessly scroll.
Doom scrolling.
Yeah, I would just endlessly scroll, and like, there's a difference between like, okay, I'm reading this book right now, and I have 10 minutes of free time. Let me pull out this book and read. Let me continue where I'm at. There's a different kind of experience of I'm gonna scroll, but I don't know what I'm gonna get next. It's kind of like a weird differential reinforcement where another similar one is like on Twitter or a lot of social media apps. When you refresh your feed, there's a little wheel that scrolls at the top. Okay, your brain responds to that stimulus the exact same way that it does a slot machine. Your brain doesn't know what's gonna happen next. You could get like the sickest, like funniest video or whatever, or it could just be like some boring news thing. Your brain doesn't know, and so it's constantly seeking this stimulus of like, okay, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? And when I started to notice that like I had a few free minutes and I would just like grab my phone and start scrolling, I started to like really pay attention to that, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is not good. And then second, if I'm completely honest, man, like I'm really bad at like I don't know, I compare myself to people a lot in unhealthy ways,
Yeah.
like, and it's just something I've always done. I don't know why, but social media was like gasoline on that fire, dude. Like it was just like too much for me. So I just kind of made a decision when I was like 25 or 26. I forgot how old I was when I really just like kind of dropped it. I was just like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't do social media like, hey, look at me, I'm Gabe. Like this is my social media account.
Yeah.
I can do social media if it's like I have a Reddit account, but I've never posted anything. I just use it as like
News.
or like I follow specific
Trade talk.
subreddits. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm really into this topic and there's a lot of good information here. So I don't think social media is bad. I just think that the way you use it, your relationship with it, is very interesting. There's a philosopher, I forget who it was, but he said that like most of humans' problems are just our inability to just sit by ourselves with our own thoughts without
You gotta have
stimulus.
something going on.
Crazy.
Do you
man.
feel like you would use that, like your ability to take social media out of your life because you saw what it was, of how the effect? Would you say that you ever use that as like an example with your clients? Like, hey, dude, like here's an example of behavior change, for example. Like,
Yeah, so like one thing that I always talk to people about, like
or do you try not to include
it's
yourself?
funny, a lot of people talk to me about quitting social media. Like a lot of people are like, yeah, I just
Like clients or just like people that you talk to?
homies, friends. I've had some clients that have talked to me about that, but
How many of them say, but it's my work?
oh man, everybody. We always rationalize our
Yeah,
addictions, right?
straight
Like,
up.
oh, I do this because of whatever. But one of the cool things in behavior, like one thing that if you're ever trying to like change a habit, one of the best things you can do is try to figure out a replacement that gets you the same kind of gratification, but it's something different. Like so think about it like this. Like most people when they use social media, like they have a little moment of downtime. Maybe they're like in the waiting room or something, and they have this like I don't know. There's like this discomfort that starts to stir up, like
I can't
uneasiness.
just sit here, man.
They need stimulus,
I can't
right?
just look at my knees.
Yeah, exactly. And so they habitually just go for their phone, and immediately they're reinforced because it's like colorful, and there's like again the wheel thing. That's like this different.
It's also some social stuff. Don't you not want to look like the person who's like just wandering around with your eyes? You want to look like you're on your phone or something. You want to look occupied.
Yeah, it could
A
be
little
some of
bit
that.
too,
Could
right?
be some of that. I would say it's probably mostly self-stimulatory. It's almost like we don't want to be here in this moment right now
Yeah.
because there's a little bit of discomfort. So I'm gonna just kind of like distract myself. And I'm going to use, in a way you could say that some art is kind of the same function. It's just that instead of scrolling, you're creating a song, you're creating music, Um, so like finding a replacement behavior. So like for me, what I did is like when I first left social media, obviously I deleted the apps from my phones, but what I did is I chose an app that I was going to use instead. So for me, it was just books, iBooks. Whenever I felt myself get that stimulus, I'm like, all right, let me just pick up my phone. I'll just open books and just start reading. And I'm not perfect. Like I was telling you, I have Reddit and I have other social media that I use, and um, I still catch myself just kind of like scrolling just because I'm bored, and it's like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
like let me be very aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't know, man. Teach their own, dude. I'm not saying that everybody should quit social media. I just think that you should be really deliberate about like why are you using it. The one that really scares me, man, I've never used it, is TikTok.
Oh my God, that's
Yo, like we're starting to mix AI into like algorithms. Like, did you know that
the industry plant.
startups,
That is the industry plant of social media apps.
tech companies
They came in here
hire
and
behavior people whose sole job it is to figure out how to make an app more addicting, dude. Like
That's
I had a friend who
nasty.
worked for Hulu,
That's disgusting.
and his whole job was how do we increase engagement time?
It's funny because
When
Hulu's
someone
like the one
jumps,
I don't even ever want to download.
yeah, and it's like how do we make it so that when someone gets on or like when you're on YouTube and like a video ends and it shows like the little wheel and it's loading the next one already,
Mm-hmm.
or like you should watch this one. Those are all just prompts that they're trying to tell you like stay further in this loop, stay further in this loop, stay further in this loop. And it sounds really sinister, but like in reality, they're just trying to maximize like the currency of our generation is attention. Your attention is like the most important thing in the world. It's more important than your time because even though you have like finite time, you have even less attention. Because a lot of times we don't even control where we put our attention, right? You go to work and you have to put your attention on whatever your job is. But your attention, like where you choose, kind of like on the computer, the mouse, where you choose to put it, that's up to you, man. And you have so little time in life to choose where you put that. And so I just think that like all the things that we do, social media, art, whatever it is, like you got to be deliberate about what am I going to use my attention on, you know? I'm trying to get better about like not like ruminating so much about things, because that's like wasted time, wasted attention.
Ruminating? What do you mean, like pondering?
Yeah, or just like
Well, wouldn't you say that's just sitting with your thoughts?
yeah, it is, but I think there's a difference between like brainstorming, where it's very
All right.
productive and it's very expansive, and then like kind of like berating yourself, like man, I should have done that better.
Or maybe like sitting on a thought that like some shit happened that like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You can't even change.
That's just as much of a kind of like I don't want to call it a waste of attention, but like it's probably not the best way to use your attention.
Yeah, I feel you.
And so I'm kind of getting really in tune with that, like man, like what. I'm experiencing this in my life right now, where it's like I have a lot going on in my life, and I was just telling David before we jumped on that like right now, like this week, this month, there's just a lot on my plate, and like I'm starting to feel the overextension of like I have too much going on, and it makes me feel a little bit out of control. And so, well, what do you do? Like, well, I gotta start saying no to things, and I have to be more mindful about where I'm putting my attention and who I'm giving it to, and like who I'm spending it with. I just think that like being deliberate about what you do is really important, and it starts with kind of like what has your attention. What are you paying attention to? Some people, man, it's like hours and hours a day just scrolling on social media. And again, teach their own. If it really brings you joy and pleasure and purpose to your life, I mean that's awesome. But I'm pretty sure most people, if you ask them, like, if you could spend less time on social media, would you do it? I'm almost willing to bet almost everybody would.
Yeah.
And it's just like this thing we all kind of do.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. It's crazy to think that like they're designing these apps to do that.
They're doing it with
It's kind of
games
creepy.
too. They're doing it with games
Yeah.
too. It's disgusting.
Games, man.
It's crazy that you say attention because it's starting to get applied everywhere now. Like everywhere, they're just trying to figure out how to maximize how much attention you're giving them. I wouldn't say it's just a social media app anymore.
No, it's everything, man. Games, content. I mean, there's weird stuff that I'm starting to see on social media. Like, have you ever seen those videos where they're like talking. It's like a voiceover of like a topic, but the video that you're seeing on screen has nothing to do with.
I've seen stuff like that.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen stuff.
That's so weird, dude. That's just somebody trying to beat the algorithm to keep your watch time as long as possible, but for them to like.
Or also
Yo.
they do a really long text on the video, and the video's so short, so it's just getting looped over and over again. And you have to keep like watching it to read the rest of it. Man, that's
Yeah.
nasty. That's
We're
disgusting,
like merging
bro.
with technology.
That's disgusting to me.
Kinda wild,
That's
huh?
gross. That's
Yeah.
like, and it makes me go back to the whole thought that like, if you take a controller, and I love video games, so don't get me wrong. Like I have
Yeah.
my things, but like if you take a controller, you take a phone out of your hand, like how do you look? Like what happens when you take the controller out? You look like a fiend, bro. Look at your hands. Like you look like a fiend, man. And it just feels nasty. Like
Interesting.
I definitely want kids. And so when I have kids, I want to keep them away from tablets for the longest time. I want to also wait until I'm successful and I can actually pay attention to my kids. I don't want to have to give them something
Interesting.
in front of them to like, because I'm too busy or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw a video one time of I think it was a 50-year-old, and she just had her first baby, and she was just kind of making a video of herself documenting it, saying like, this baby likes to cry all the time. It's like, okay, we're gonna go for a walk, because like essentially was the point she's trying to make. She's like, she has time to take care of her baby,
Yeah.
and despite it being 50, her being 50, you know, the baby might get embarrassed. You know, like being a 10-year-old having like a 60-year-old mom, like, oh, my mom's old, you know?
Yeah.
Like my friend's got a hot ass 30-year-old mom or something like that, like some shit like that. But they might get a little embarrassed and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like that's probably the most fitting person to be a mother. Like she's already lived, she's got time on her hands, like she can actually pay attention to you as like you're developing.
Yeah.
And so long as she's cool and she can do it without being overbearing. And that applies for like fathers and mothers. Like I want to make sure like I can take a break. I can take a week off work and like be chilling because my son or my daughter's like sick and they need somebody there or something like that.
That's so awesome, man, that you're like deliberate about that decision.
For sure, but it's because I want kids. Like I really want them, but I want to be like you said. I want to about being intentional with as many things as you can.
Yeah.
I want to be intentional with it. I don't want to make them seem like they're a project, you know, that I just But at the same time, I also want to make sure that I'm not gonna suck at it because I'm gonna be like, well, shit. Everything that I do, I want to be good at.
Yeah.
And that includes the personal life stuff, being a father or, I guess being good at the games that I play or being good at darts.
Yeah.
Like everything that I do, I apply my time to. I want to be good. I've had arguments before, and I sound cocky when I say this, but it's like the only reason I'm beating you in this argument is because I only jump into arguments that I have like a chance in. I'm not gonna argue with people if I don't know. I'll be curious and I'll ask questions, but
Yeah,
I try not to act like I know shit that I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I think like
Downside, real quick, last point.
Yeah.
Is because I only jump into shit that I know about. It might give me a little bit more of a cocky approach to things, and I can come off arrogant because of it sometimes. For sure.
Yeah, you know, I think another byproduct or another like I guess another byproduct of like our internet content generation is just like it's kind of weird that we care about everybody's opinion about everything, you know, like we care about like what Joe Rogan
Yeah, it's just I looked at him like, yeah, we might need some refills right now.
You gave me the look.
That was the look.
Look.
But like, isn't it funny how we care about like everyone's opinion about everything now? Like we care about what this actor thinks about this topic in like this country, like, and like we just like over optimize for like I need to know like everybody has to have an opinion about everything. And my girlfriend and I were talking the other day, and like she kind of like she asked me something, and I forgot what she asked me about, and I was just like, you know what? I don't think I know enough to be honest with you. I don't think I know enough to like really have a position on that. And then I started to think to myself like, damn, how many positions do I have on things that I actually thought my way into versus how many positions do I have on things that I just kind of like heard from somewhere? You know what I mean? Like when you're voting for someone, how much of it did you actually go through their platform and like, okay, what is it that this person believes and what do they stand for and what are they trying to accomplish and what is their voting record, and versus I just saw the debates and they did the best, you know, or I think that people should do X or I think that people should do Y, but like, how much of that did you actually think your way into and like reason your way into versus like you just saw it on a TikTok or something and you're kind of just like, that's an interesting idea, right? Because I think we all feel like we have to have such strong beliefs about so many things and so many positions about everything, you know, like something happens in some country somewhere and like everybody has to like change their profile picture and like everybody's got to like have a strong opinion about it, and I think that's a good thing. But I think like a question to consider is like how many of those positions did we really sort of like deliberately reason our way into? Because man, we're just like there's so much content that we see now. I wonder like sometimes like where did I get this idea from? Like where did this come from? Did I just see this in a video and then I
This
forgot?
isn't an independent belief.
Yeah, and so again, going back to the whole deliberate thing, like trying to not have an opinion on something, if kind of like what you're talking about, like if you know yet you don't really know that much about something, like being willing to just like I don't think I know.
I'm a free agent.
I'm a free agent on this.
Yeah, I'm not signed to no
Let
team on
me,
this.
and I think it's also like some of the smartest people I've ever known are really good at that. Good at like,
Knowing where they stand on certain topics.
yeah, I'm ignorant on this. I don't really know much about this, so I can't really have.
They are consciously incompetent.
Yes,
There you
consciously
go.
incompetent.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's important. But I don't know. It's crazy, man. The content world is just like insane. How fast paced it is, and kudos to people who are like full time content creators now.
All this talk about attention. One of the scariest things that I worry about is how hypocritical is it of me to discredit where we're going with social media while I'm over here trying to build platforms that are content machines. Thing is though, is that I think a lot of the content that I find so fascinating is long form content. I love long sessions
Like this.
or long form conversations.
Yeah.
Photos. A photo doesn't loop. You can
Right.
just look at it as long as you want. Like bask it in, Graphic design. I don't like short videos. They're not my jam.
I think the analogy is like fast fashion.
I'll go on YouTube and I'll be looking for something to watch, and if it's under 10 minutes, I'm like, nah. Give me that 18-minute banger. Something like that.
I see what you're saying.
Because I also like turn off like the controller, like so that we don't have to like ruin the batteries or anything. But
yeah,
it's
no.
like,
I see what
in
you're saying.
6 minutes, I'm about to turn my shit back on. Like, nah, give me a 20-minute banger.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I hear you. I think there's definitely like a lot of value to like all kinds of content, short, long, deep, whatever. But there's something there, man. There's like a quality there that is, you know it when you see it. Like this person really put thought and effort into this.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some incredible YouTubers that make amazing videos, dude, and you can tell they have a really refined process and they develop their technique and they have a way of doing things, and then you have videos that are just meant to just like game the algorithm and just like, and I see what you're saying. I kind of think of it like fast fashion. You have like these companies that just they'll sell you like a bundle of clothes for like $30,
Yeah,
but
they're gonna rip.
it's gonna rip in like after the first use, and it's just so wasteful for the environment, for like just a lot of reasons. And I feel like I don't know. There's like if you buy a really really good car, like I don't know, it shouldn't be breaking down on you after a couple of years, right? Like, but if you are into really like the best content, the best movies, the best books, the best music are the ones that you can constantly reconsume and get something new out of them every time. Like there's albums that I listen to where every time I listen to them, I'm like, damn, like that verse is so good. I never heard that one line before. Like fast content, I don't know if it's the same,
Yeah.
So
I think I'd be like very purposeful with the fast content that I watch, like
mm-hmm.
like cooking videos.
Yeah.
Like maybe I don't always want a long video to watch. Maybe I just kind of want it summarized real quick,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I can go back to it. But there's something I'm gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
There's some mindless entertainment, of course, but that's
which is there's nothing wrong with. I think like
I just can't. I just don't really like if you give me the time to think about it, I would struggle trying to give you ideas of what exactly long form content I do like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, conversations are great, dude.
My biggest goals is to what do you call it? Ask the guest who they suggest that we get next to try to like
that's great, man.
pay it forward almost.
That's great.
I forgot what interview thing does that. But as far as the podcast goes, we went ahead and submitted it already to, like when you want to submit an album to Spotify, to Apple Music, you go to a distributor.
DistroKid or CD Baby.
That's what I use.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with podcasts, but instead of a distributor, you're going to you're creating an RSS feed.
Right.
You heard of that?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've done this before. Yeah.
So I made it with Buzzsprout.
Okay.
And
what made you pick them?
It was just like the main thing, and I looked them up before when I kept trying to tell Leo from Florida, insurance to like, yo, dude, float insurance needs a damn podcast right now. Like, just bringing people,
Man,
man.
yeah, for
It'd have been sick. They have a nice, beautiful office, and I was like, just let me handle it, bro. I got you.
yeah,
So
seriously.
we're about to fully realize how this ends up becoming that. Because I
Mm-hmm.
told them, I was like, you guys should just focus it to the commercial department. Like, just like, bring entrepreneurs in. Like, focus in the podcast as like an extension to the company.
Mm-hmm.
You don't got to talk to freaking truck drivers or anything like that. You don't got to like accommodate every department you do. Just make it a commercial.
Stay in your lane. Yeah.
The project, at least the podcast, the whole insurance company, at the end of the day, you find out, oh man, like I caught you guys because of this entrepreneurial podcast you have. I didn't know you guys also did life insurance. Like, shit, let me get my own shit. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I feel like almost any business or service
Needs a podcast now.
needs content. for
Yeah,
sure.
dude.
But I feel like it could be
You need content that doesn't try to sell your shit.
right.
It's just educational or
Right.
what's the word? Entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like anything could be made interesting. Literally anything. Like there's a writer,
It's because there's an audience for everything.
yeah, for sure. Especially when you're making shorter content, like
Yeah, like those episodes could have been like 30 minutes. You know, you don't got to make long.
Yeah, it
ones.
doesn't gotta be
Or yeah, short ones. Man,
back to the dilemma.
they
of,
always
like,
wanted
short
me to
content,
make
long content.
TikToks, man. I just couldn't do it.
Man, I don't
Flood
know.
insurance, if
I've
you're
never
watching
used it,
this,
so
I'm
who am I,
sorry, just
right?
Can't do
But
it. Can't do no TikToks.
I don't know. TikTok's interesting, man. I think if
It's a slot machine.
kind of right. It's kind of like you don't know
That's what
what
it
you
is.
get.
And I ain't no gambler.
Yeah,
I ain't no gambler.
for sure, man.
But I do want to do parlays.
Dude? I'm curious.
You know how you do trades?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say you have the same traits of a gambler? Same interest of
No,
a gambler?
man.
There's strategy behind gambling too, so you can't say that there's strategy behind just trading and there's not behind gambling.
That's a good question.
Before you go there, I'm gonna stop you before you go there. There's strategy behind gambling.
Whole other back. Yeah, there is definitely strategy behind gambling.
However, I'll let you continue to explain to justify how you don't have a gambling problem.
I think TikTok's worse though, because you can't strategize it.
As a viewer
Yeah. It's
or
just
as like a creator?
reading
Yeah,
you.
you just-
Whereas like trading, there's patterns and strategies. It's more like predicting the weather as opposed to just blindly seeing what's next.
That's not fair. Because on TikTok, like, for example, TikTok, you could also be like, "Oh, dude, my algorithm just knows me so fucking well at this point." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But no. Let's stick to trade versus gambling
okay. This is a great question.
because I want to start getting into parlays.
I think
I see people put like $6 in and they win like 36,000.
yeah,
I want it. I started looking at my chops, man.
yeah. Okay, so a couple of interesting topics here. So first one is before we try to differentiate between trading and gambling, what is gambling? Like how are we defining that?
Yeah, because like there's some gambling that requires a lot of strategy. You go in on a poker table, and if you're a good poker player, you're not really gambling anymore.
And then also too, you have poker players that are not one off. Like you have like there's a poker player named Annie Duke, incredible poker player, but now she's a management consultant and she helps Fortune 500 companies with decision making. She wrote a book
That's
called
crazy.
Thinking in Bets. Fascinating book, dude.
It's crazy
Um,
how it stems from gambling. Did it, or did it stem from
No,
her
no,
already
she
knowing good
is a poker
decision making,
player.
and then she just became a badass poker player
No,
because
I
of
think
it?
she
The chicken or
learned
the egg.
good decision making through playing poker.
Mm.
And then you have people that are consistently good at playing poker.
You play it so much, and you just kind of learn which of those things, like those rules of the game, are like universal rules as well.
So one of the principles I think that is related to gambling and trading is risk management.
Mm-hmm.
Risk management, okay? A lot of people don't know this, but some of the most successful traders and investors like ever don't even have a 50% batting average. Meaning when they make a trade, they're wrong in the majority of the time. So you're probably asking, well, how are they profitable? How are they successful? Well, it's because when they're correct, when they're right, the amount that they gain is like disproportionate to the amount that they lose. So there's a trader named Oliver Kell. He won the 2021 U.S. Investing Championships with a 991% return in a single year. That's
And when you
insane.
do that stuff, do you all put in the same amount? They all give you the same amount to put in, and whoever can make the most out of that amount.
There's rules. There's rules.
There's
on
got to
that.
be a flat amount, right? A fixed amount.
I don't
that
know if
you
it's a
all
fixed
start with?
amount, but I think you do have to, you have to show like, okay, here's the starting amount, and you have to show how much you made.
You
Because it's all
say
percentage based.
that you want to become great enough to be able to.
I would love to compete in the U.S. Investing.
Can you just sign up for it, or do you have to be invited to it?
No, I think you can just sign up for it, but I'm not there
Your
yet.
confidence level's not there yet.
No, I mean I'm pretty good at it, dude. Surprisingly, I'm pretty good at it, but I don't feel comfortable like doing that yet. I have a lot of years ahead, man. This is a skill that I'm gonna refine over the next 30 years, dude. Like,
Just out of curiosity, how old is that guy that won?
oh man, he's like 31 or 32.
It's
Yeah,
time.
yeah, and I read his book
Time to
and
start joining.
incredible stuff. But my point is that risk management, meaning when you buy something, how much of it do you buy? Where do you decide that you're wrong and you're gonna just get out, right? Where do you decide that you're right and you're gonna take some profits or you're gonna protect your risk? Like all of the, like m- most people think that trading is just like buying at the right place. Most of trading is like what you do after you buy. When do you get out? When do you take profits? When do you move your stop losses? All these technical things. So gambling, I don't know, man. It's hard to compare it to gambling because there is a lot of strategy behind it. And the way that I trade is like I have this system that I've created. It's literally like rules. If this, then that. It's like I could probably teach somebody how to do what I do, like almost perfect, because it's so well defined. And when I'm trading, I'm never relying on, I think it's gonna go out. Like never. It's just like, oh, these checkboxes are not hit, so like I'm not gonna
Like
enter this trade.
thresholds.
Thresholds. Think of it like a big checklist. Like before I
Does it fit this
ever
criteria?
enter a trade or do anything like that, there's always like a huge list of checkboxes that I have to check. And I think I nerded out with you on this once and I showed you what that list is. But that I think is, I don't know, to me gambling is very like or they call it tilt. Sometimes like when you're playing, like let's say you're at the blackjack table, right? And you start getting lucky. And then you hit a big losing trade and you're pissed. You're like, "Oh, I lost all my money." So what do? You start to bet bigger to try to like get that money back, right? That's called going on tilt. You're like, you're not level headed anymore. Now you're like, now you're
My
thinking with
boy
your emotions.
Israel, somebody explained that to me. I think my cousin actually explained that to me when we were in Austin. And my boy Israel leans in and he goes, "That's why I don't drink and trade." Because like it's so you're so much more vulnerable to that effect. I didn't know
Yeah.
they didn't call it tilt. They
Yeah.
explained it like they defined it the way you.
No, yeah. That's exactly what it is. And like part of the
You're not sturdy no more. You're flimsy.
that's so flimsy,
You're
dude.
flimsy.
Sturdy. Like if you're gonna jump, first of all, if you're gonna even be dumb enough to try to trade your money, um, you have to have
Boundaries.
before you even like enter a trade, you have to know the entire universe of possible outcomes. What can possibly happen from here? Can it go up 2%? Can it go up 20%? Can it go down 5%? Can it gap down 20% tomorrow? Like you have to have every universal possibility already figured out before you even lay down a dime. And one of the ways that you know you have good rules is when your rules sometimes keep you out of good trades. Like my system has kept me out of trades that if I didn't follow my system, I would just go for it and I would have been right, but because my system was not all systems go, I didn't take the trade and I missed out on an opportunity, right? That's how you know you're following the rules, man.
That's
And
the
then
game.
vice versa. Like there's been so many trades where it's like, damn, almost everything says go except for these two things, so I'm not going to take this trade. And sure
Saves
enough,
your
2 days
ass.
later, boom, 20 like a
Saves your
20% drop.
ass.
So like just I think having rules is like really important. And again, like going back to like Annie Duke, this poker player, she wrote a book on decision making. It's called Thinking in Bets. And she lays out basically her entire methodology of how she thinks about betting and risk management in the context of poker. And she correlates it to like everyday decision making. That to me is so fascinating, man, because I think you can take something that is traditionally gambling and apply good risk management to it and make it not gambling.
And then you got slots where
Then
there's
you
no
got slots, which
strategy
is
behind
purely
it.
just-
That's TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok is
That's
slots.
TikTok. That's
TikTok is slots.
Yeah, but I think one
Poker
of the things,
is monopoly.
poker's like in between trading and like
And gambling
TikTok.
is
Fuck
Yeah.
Monopoly.
yeah, well, it's like
Monopoly.
strategy. Like I'm not just.
But I will say this though, man. One of the things I love about trading.
Actually, no, that's not a good thing. So slots is TikTok, and poker is Reddit.
Poker's like Reddit.
Like there's strategy behind, like your app. Like you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I got my threads and stuff.
Trading is Notion and Web.
Okay, dude. Yeah, it's a big learning curve. Big learning curve.
Nah,
Huge
but what I will say,
strategy.
one of the coolest things that I've gained through learning about trading is just learning about the world, man. Because I'm constantly reading up on companies and the industries they're in, and I'm constantly learning about like the finance world and interest rates and like what's happening with
Yeah,
the
like by
Fed and like what's
association.
happening. Yeah, all these things like. And I always tell my friends like, man, if I could be 21 again and go back to college, I wonder if I would have studied finance or economics. It's like a love that I didn't discover that I had until I was like 24, you know. But it's like it's so fascinating, man. The world of finance is so fascinating, and just how everything is all it's all interconnected, and it's very it's all behavior. It's all human behavior, you know.
Yeah.
When the stock market crashes, it's because a lot of people feel uncertain and they're selling all their stocks, and so the market is crashing, you know.
You see news about a CEO falls into a depression and like he's off the rails and he's over here getting DWIs. Are you gonna get out of a company? You know what I mean?
Maybe not me, but like some people might, you know.
Like is that how like detailed it can get? Like that's how
Yeah,
much they study up. They read tabloids about like the entrepreneurs and stuff. They read that
yeah,
somebody
man.
just got a crazy car crash.
Yeah, some people go like,
Like, oh, I'm gonna get out of that company because it's probably gonna drop right now.
yeah, and then if you zoom out a second and you think about like we've all seen a stock chart before, right?
Hmm.
Imagine a stock chart of like the S&P 500, right? It's like the entire it's like the largest 500 companies in the US, right? All in one little basket of stocks, this index. Price is going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's moving all over the place. That price movement is just the aggregate actions of like millions and millions and millions of people that are all deciding today, right now, I think it's going to go up. I think it's going to go down. And they're buying or selling based on that. And what you see is just the result of those aggregate decisions happening in real time. You know? So like you're literally seeing groupthink or like you're seeing human consciousness
Like being
sort of
quantified.
being quantified exactly. And that's so fascinating to me, man. It's so fascinating. And then, you know, I've read a lot of books about like just like the way that market cycles work, you know, and like when we're in a recession, which sectors do good, or when we're coming out of a recession, which sectors do good. And it's been so fascinating learning these last couple of years because of COVID, which was like this black swan event. But seeing how we went from like this insane bull market of just like everything going up, dude, cryptocurrency and everything just fucking blowing up. And then it all just kind of popped and it all just fell apart for like a long while. And now it's barely starting to chug along, you know, like the Federal Reserve is like, okay, we're done raising interest rates, we think. And so suddenly things are starting to turn around. And just like all the way all the books said it was going to go down is almost exactly how it's all going down. And so it's just interesting to like, it's like you're watching this mechanical, you know, like what's that saying that like history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes? Markets are like the perfect representation of that because it's all just these cycles, dude. Cycles over and over and over. And I don't know, man. It's super
I
interesting
never heard
stuff.
that
I
saying.
feel like arguably that's the difference between gambling is that there's a history that you can look back at.
Yeah.
Whereas gambling,
Yeah,
it's like a
there's-
brand new every
It doesn't
time.
matter what the last few games
Yeah.
said.
And in gambling, that's a great point. In gambling, like, I guess it's not true, but in gambling, each hand is like kind of isolated, right? Like what happened before it has really no bearing on what happens next.
Unless it's the same game. Unless it's
True,
the same
right?
game.
Unless you're
'Cause
playing with like a
if
deck.
cards are getting laid out, like
Correct.
chances are the possibilities that you're running out of options.
Correct.
Oh, I'm just gonna be the devil's advocate through this.
No, yeah, but I think what he's saying is like when you're buying a stock, you're like, oh, earnings are going up, and they just got new management, and they're in the top performing sector, and we're in a bull market in the S&P 500.
And this
interest rates
industry
are low.
typically does like you can
Yeah,
go
yeah.
so far back and like
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
you have so much reference material.
Yeah, and if it truly was random, then you wouldn't have consistently good investors that outperform the market. Like really good investors that are consistently outperforming the market. I don't think you would have that.
Because it'd be too random.
It'd be too
feel-
random.
I feel what
You know
you're
what I mean? So
So you're not a gambling addict.
not a gambling addict. Said every gambling addict ever. No, I feel pretty confident about what I do and you know like the system I use. And it took me it took me years of like eating shit before I finally like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Like, oh, now I'm profitable. Like now I'm actually making money with this thing. Like took a long time, dude. It's a hard learning curve, dude. So many times I'm just like, why am I doing this?
When you said around 24 is when you found the interest in this, so
Like,
would you say it's been about since then that you've
it's
been
been like 10 years that I've
dabbling
been
in it?
really into this stuff. I didn't get into trading like the way I do it now till maybe like like maybe 5 years ago. But I've always been into investing, dude. Like I started investing like easy long term buy and hold forever stuff when I was like 19.
Mm-hmm.
And then through the years, I've slowly just kind of like expanded my circle of competence, I guess.
Short term, midterm,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Now most of what I do is like super long term, but I have a chunk of my portfolio that I actively trade. And I don't know, man, it's just so interesting to me. It's super fun. It's probably not something you should say about trading. It's fun.
It's fun.
But it's interesting for sure, man. And it's just like this flow state. Like this is like I don't know. I love learning about it.
You know how we talked about one time last time when we were here, we got into the whole topic of games, everything.
Yeah.
That's complete dead time for me. But
Mhm.
as far as I've known you, I don't necessarily know because I wouldn't even consider you going to the gym to be dead time. There's still a purpose behind that.
Yeah.
Like,
So like
Do you-
what is dead time for me?
do you even consider that reading? Is that even considered reading?
Well, what do you mean by dead time?
What is not progressing you in your life, but you just enjoyed it like
It's like
dabble?
value.
Yeah, it's valuable
Value.
to you and you only, but not like to what your mission is. I guess it
Chess.
can be valuable to your mission because it's like I need this to reset myself. Like at the end of the day, you can justify it, but
Yeah, I guess. I think that
say chess.
yeah, chess is probably
Man.
like the most outer thing that I do that doesn't really. I'm never gonna make money playing chess. I'm not that good at it.
you
You
like-
know, like I get beat by kids all the time.
Yeah,
You know, I'm serious about it. I read books about it. Like I'm really trying to get good at it, but it's kind of dead time, I guess, in a way. Like it's fun. It's not wasted time.
I wouldn't call this wasted time either. But like, do you meditate?
Yeah, dude.
I know you asked me, I think one time, and
Yeah.
I told you like, I don't think I do. But we try to define it as well. I try to define it as anything that allows my mind to just like unload on itself,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
kind of freely roam. So that's kind of what I
Yeah.
said. Like when I had my old car, I used to love going on drives everywhere. I had my windows tinted
Yeah, there you
dark.
go.
It was like a spaceship.
It's kind of like
So what is it for you?
would you consider that a flow state? Like are you describing a flow state?
I wouldn't say I'm being productive in that state when I'm just driving around on a long drive.
But you can
I
go
would
into
consider it a meditative state because I'm allowing myself to like collect my thoughts.
yeah.
So like, is yours a little bit more like cross-legged, breathing
Yeah,
techniques?
not really. I think damn, that's a really good
Yoga?
question, man. I mean, I love movies, film.
Did I have a fair statement of what meditating is?
Oh, to just okay. So you describe meditation as just like letting your mind kind of like
Something that allows
Follow
you to
go
just
free.
kind of you're not so
well, meditation's kind of different. Meditation is like paying attention to what it's like to be you in the present moment.
I feel like it's the opposite of what you just said.
Kind of.
So, like you actually want to like not let your mind go free, but like focus on something.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like not thinking in a way, you know.
Focus on not thinking.
Yeah, or like just notice when okay, so here's the way to think of it. Like when I first started meditating, I thought that the purpose of meditation was to not think, right? I think that's what everybody thinks. And you tell them like, "Have you ever tried meditation?" I'm like, "Oh no, I can't. Like I can't meditate because I just think too much." And it's like, "Well, you definitely need to meditate." Like if you say you think too much, right? So the idea is that like when you sit down to meditate, what you do is you sit in a comfortable position and then you start to pay attention to your breathing, right? And you just feel you literally just feel what it's like to breathe. So like you breathe in through your nose and you breathe out through your mouth. You're just feeling what that's like. And again, the mouse on your computer is on the feeling of breathing. That's where it's at. And you're literally following that. And then what happens is you start to think without trying. You're like, how come kangaroos have pouches? Like, I've never understood why like random shit, you know? Or like, oh man, I gotta send that email to John tomorrow. It just pops up. You don't control it. You don't choose to have that thought. It just emerges. And the bicep curl of meditation is noticing that you're thinking and bringing your attention back to your breathing. That's the bicep curl of meditation. It's noticing when you're lost in thought. Because think about it. How many times have you been driving in the car and you just space out, you get lost in thought, and you don't realize until you get to the exit. You just spent 5 minutes lost in thought, ruminating, just thinking. And you didn't realize that you were thinking, and you also didn't choose to start thinking.
You weren't aware.
Exactly.
Meditation is the process of becoming aware.
That you're thinking. Again, so when I say like it's like noticing what it's like to be you right now, it's like how does my body feel on this couch, or like what does it feel like to breathe? What's happening in my you're just becoming aware of that stuff. And it's like a
Meditating
bicep curl.
is realizing no matter what you do, you can always see your nose in your vision.
Oh my god, dude. But it's kind of, man.
Now you realize it, you're like, oh shit, I'm back to my nose, you know?
Yeah, and it shows you, like, it makes you aware of like how, just in our day to day, man, like how much we just think and we get lost in thought without realizing it, and not all that thinking is productive. Not all of it is like brainstorming or like creative thinking,
It
or
doesn't help that we're always overly stimulated with so much shit around us too.
yeah. Again, it goes back to that thing of like our inability to just sit alone with our thoughts, like.
Dang.
And so like cultivating that is like, again, it's like a bicep curl, it's like a muscle thing, you know. So there was a point in my life where I meditated every day, and I got really, really, really into it. In the last couple of years, it's been a little more hit or miss. I've started to do a little bit more yoga. My girlfriend got certified in yoga this summer, and that's been like amazing because it's kind of a mixture of like fitness, and I hate any person who does yoga listening to me right now is like thinks I'm an asshole, but yoga's like this mixture of like physical sort of like I don't know what to call it. It's exercise plus meditation in a way, you know, because you're
You
putting
think people are
yourself.
gonna hate you for saying that? They can call you an
Man,
asshole for that?
I hope not.
That sounds,
That
as
sounds
an
reasonable.
outsider of somebody who doesn't do yoga, I would be like, that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
'Cause I've done it once, so like, I know that I get sweating. I start
It's
sweating
hard,
at that
man.
shit. But I also know, as an outsider, my assumption would be at some point, kind of like as an outsider of a runner,
Mhm.
you're probably always searching like, how do you even reach that runner's high? You know, so like as an outsider, I'm like, at
Mhm.
some point, I'm gonna expect to find some sort of euphoric feeling from this yoga shit
Absolutely, man.
once I get
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah.
First time it's gonna be kicking my ass because I haven't been stretching like this and I haven't been holding
Yeah.
myself in positions like that.
But it's crazy because like when you think about it, when you sit down, like the purpose of meditating is not to sit in a quiet room by yourself and be good at meditation, right? Like it's to be able to be in chaos and to just be calm. Like there's that meme of like that little dog, like the whole world is on fire, and he's like, "This is fine."
Just like a monk,
You know,
just, like,
yeah, you're just
literally lit
calm,
on fire
just
and
calm.
just chilling. Those
Shit's
protester
going
monks.
crazy, stuff's coming at you. Like there's a lot going on, but you can just disconnect and like be here right now. That I think is the key like thing that we're trying to achieve in meditation. And yoga is interesting because it's not just sitting down and breathing. It's let me put you in this pretzel position that's really uncomfortable, but you also got to pay attention to your breathing and be here right now. That's very interesting, dude. I was in Thailand this summer and I did a yin yoga class. Yin yoga is all about like putting your body in these weird positions, like uncomfortable positions where your body is kind of like freaking out a little bit. You're like, why am I, what's going on here? But the whole point is to just stay in that position and to just like accept that discomfort. Like, oh, this sucks right now. Okay. And you realize that that's kind of like a muscle. Anytime that you have to deal with something difficult, or like the fucking Photoshop thing's not working, or the plugin's not working, or like you lost footage, whatever. That's kind of that kind of situation. It's another one of those where you have to just like, okay, like what's it, the Marines is? They say adapt and overcome. Just accept and then like move forward. It's hard, man. It's so hard. But I think it starts with meditating, teaching yourself to sit down, pay attention to your breathing, notice when you're lost in thought, and then come back over and over and over, dude. It's an interesting practice, man. Yeah.
Man, so no dead time. Because
Nah,
how
that's
often
not
did you say you
true.
play chess?
I play chess every day, man, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
but
online?
I'm not like studying hours. I play on chess.com mostly.
Chess.com?
Yeah,
It's
there's
just chess.com?
Chess.com. There's an app.
That
You
sounds
play chess,
nice.
dude?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Do you chess.com?
No,
No? Oh, okay.
no, I do iMessage chess.
Oh, okay, sick. Yeah. So you play chess, yeah.
Yeah, my brother.
Are you good?
I have my days.
Do you know what your rating is?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't imagine it's very high.
You wouldn't imagine?
I wouldn't imagine.
No?
No.
Dude, chess is so hard, man, but it's so fun. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so great. It's so humbling too. But yeah, man, chess is like another one of those where you have to like, I don't know, you make bad moves in chess all the time,
You remember those too.
and you remember them. They
Like,
hurt,
dang.
dude. And they throw you off, and you have to like, okay, what's on the board right now? Like, I know I just lost my queen, but like,
Yeah.
what is still here? You know,
It's like reassess.
It's hard, man. It's hard. But yeah, dead time. I don't know. I'm sure that I have a lot of dead time, man. Chess is that, you know, I mindlessly scroll YouTube like when I don't like I'm done with my work and like I just need to like shut my brain off. Yeah.
Your ultimate goal is to like just be able to I don't know, I guess find some financial freedom enough to be able to travel.
Yeah, that's definitely like the next
Your next
chapter
step
of my
is to
life.
be able to find yourself in New York, right?
Yeah, so a recent development that's come up for me is like some opportunities in New York that I want to pursue, and I've lived in El Paso my whole life, man. Like born and raised, I'm 32. Been here my whole life. I've traveled a lot. I've traveled long term, but I've never lived anywhere. And I went to New York for the first time in September. And I don't know, man. I think last time I was here, I was telling you guys, like, I just clicked in that city, dude. Something about New York, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably a combination of like the people I was with there, but just the fast pacedness of the city. And like, there's so much going on. There's so much culture. There's so much music. There's so much art. There's so much like, just it's like the nexus of culture and like,
Impact.
yeah, it's
A lot
all
of those
there.
projects that we talked about in the beginning, like
Yeah.
find their way into the New York place. the New
For
York area.
sure, man. And I think I don't know if I would want to live there like long term. Number one, it's like super expensive, you know.
Big
But
rats,
number two, like
big crackheads.
it would just be like I don't know, a year, 2 years. It'd be super sick to be over there, man, and just kind of be there and like,
No one.
we're good.
Yeah.
Should we start?
No, you're good. I got you.
I don't know, New York, man. We'll see. But I would love to. Like, I went to Thailand this summer for a month, and that was like a life changing experience. I think what I gained from that is like, I went to Thailand and I unplugged. Like, I literally unplugged. Like, I put a lot of my clients and a lot of my stuff on hold, and I had like this rapid expansion of my happiness, but I wasn't necessarily making more money or like being more success. Like, I wasn't getting wins.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like I was just doing stuff I enjoyed every day. And I was around good people. And I was so mind blown at like how much my happiness could increase without the variables that I thought would raise my happiness, if that makes any sense.
So-
You know what I mean?
Did you feel like purpose was more valuable than a win?
Damn, that's a great question. Yeah, I think in a sense. And I think I also just like I think I just chill the fuck out, man. Because I'm a very type A, like intense kind of person, and I'm very self aware of that. I think Thailand helped me to just sort of like not be so stimulated all the time. And that was very like, whoa, like this is kind of nice, you know? My girlfriend loves to travel too. And so one of our collective goals is like we want to spend like a year just traveling the world, like from one country to the next. And that's like a long-term goal of mine. I have I'm 32, so I'm not in a rush to do that, but that's definitely something I want to do, man. There's so much world out there, and like when you go to other countries, you realize just how different people and like everything is in other places, man. Like so different, and it teaches you a lot about yourself and like your culture back home and like what you think is normal and what's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. That's definitely something I want to.
Does that curiosity for exploring just kind of stem from you as a just on your own, or do you think there's anything that like that happens throughout life that like, puts
Kind
you
of
in this
instilled
direction?
that?
Yeah, that kind of instills that.
Yeah, I think so, man. So I have an uncle who's he's actually a Jesuit priest. He's a professor, teaches in Berkeley, and he has been like traveling the world since like he became a priest, which was like in 1991. And so when I was a kid, I would go over to my grandma's house and he would be in town, and he would always like prop me up on the couch and he would pull out his laptop and he would just show me photos, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is Africa, and like this is, whatever country that I was in. And dude, 7 years old, 8 years old, and you're seeing like, I distinctly remember this like parade he showed me, and just like the costumes that the people were wearing, and the color, and like the headdresses, and it's just like being so mind blowing for me, and like seeing that stuff, and to think this isn't on TV. Like you took these photos on your camera, like you were there, and he was just constantly talking to me about like just the world out there and where he's been, and I think that kind of planted the seed for me of just like I want to go see other countries. And then there was a book I read called Vagabonding by this guy Rolf Potts, um, and he's like a world traveler, and he wrote that book to kind of show people that it seems like this crazy radical idea to just like kind of like pick up your life and go travel the world and just like, but he really breaks it down like piece by piece, and you realize like one of the points that he brings up is that for the amount of money that we spend on rent in the United States on average, you could live for like 6 months in another country. For the amount of money that you spend on like a single nice dinner here in the US, you could buy groceries for a month in like another country. And he puts all this stuff in perspective, and he's like, it's not that crazy to think that like I want to go live in another country. Like this client that I just started working with from New York, but now he lives in Barcelona. And he's been in Barcelona for like 6 months and fucking loves it, dude. Loves it. And he's like, it's a whole different world, totally different people, but he loves it. And it's totally doable, man. I think people have never been out of the country are like missing out on like a fundamental experience. Didn't you travel recently? Where'd you go?
Yeah, I went to New Zealand.
New Zealand. Oh my God. Never been, man. But
It's really pretty.
I've heard amazing stuff. And like people have not experienced that. Like, yeah, you only see it on like TV and shit,
I feel like there's a lack of understanding of just like how finite and just how much there is to cherish within life. And I don't know. I mean, I think you either inherently have it or things happen in life that come across that like almost force you to begin to cherish life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think it is that like came across that like just
Yeah. Well, I think okay, so I have an interesting experience. So, there's a disease that runs on my mom's side of the family called Huntington's disease. It's a neurodegenerative disease. So my mom actually passed away in 2020. She had Huntington's. My grandfather had it. My uncle had it. And so if you are the son or daughter of somebody who has the disease, you have a 50% chance of having it yourself. So like, there's my
man? So
probability.
rare disease, but not so rare when it's in your lineage.
Correct. Yeah. So like, that has always been the thing for me.
Huntington's
Disease. Yeah. It's similar to Parkinson's, but it basically just like attacks your central nervous system, and it just gradually just deteriorates your body. But yeah, I grew up with that disease in my family, so that came with a whole host of things. But I think what it really made me realize was that, we tend to think like, okay, I'm gonna live to be 80, but how much of that time are you gonna actually have all of your faculties?
Yeah.
So maybe you're gonna live till 80, but like up until what age are you gonna be like fully functional, ready to go, And then I remember when I got hired to be a teacher when I was 21 years old. Like I jumped right into my career, dude. And I remember having this feeling of like, I was probably like in my second year of teaching. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna do this thing for like 38 more years, And then I'm gonna retire and be kind of like older and like maybe not have all my energy and all my vitality to like do the things I want to do. So I'm gonna like give up this like the best years of my life at a job that I'm like not. I loved it. It was great, but like I don't know. I'm gonna give up all that and then like finally get to retire, but maybe not even have.
The
The
capacity to
thing
enjoy
about this
it.
disease, man, is that if you have it, it affects people at different ages. But my mom started to have symptoms when she was like in her 40s. So like think about that shit. I'm 32, yo.
Yeah.
So like I think for me personally, man, I've always had this sense of like not urgency, but this sense of like you don't have as much time as you think, And I don't know that I have the disease or not. I haven't been tested for it. I don't know if I want to get tested for it.
I think the sentence, first of all, just like ends at you don't know how much time you have. Like you don't
Yeah.
even know what to think.
And
It's
even if you
crazy.
don't have
Yeah, I wanted to ask you,
these-
like, what's your approach on this? Like, do you want to approach this cautionary? Or do you want to just let life be life? Like, you
I've-
just said you haven't checked on it.
Nah, man, I've approached it like with caution. Number one, because like, well, in terms of like financial stuff, like part of the reason why I think I got so into finance is because I had this obsession of like, if I get really sick, I want to make sure that whoever is my spouse or like, I want to make sure they're not gonna have to worry about me and like they're not gonna be like financially,
Burdened.
effed if they have to take care of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's always been some of that. Like I want to be quote unquote like wealthy or well off, not because I want like a Beamer, but because I just want to know that like if I'm sick and I got to take care of me, I'm gonna be all right. So I've taken a lot of precautions at a very young age
Mm-hmm.
to try to like set myself up so that if that situation does happen, me or my spouse like we're gonna be okay. But honestly, man, nobody really knows how much time we have if you really think about it. Like you don't. There's this saying I read this in a book when my mom had passed. It was this book that I read on like grieving, and like one of the things that they mentioned was like we tend to, when you travel, right, and you go to a city for the first time, you have beginner's mind, where you're experiencing everything for the first time, and so your brain is just like. But there's a flip side to that, which is kind of like experiencing everything as if it could be the last time, and that like really makes a lot of sense for me. Like this could be the last conversation you and I have for whatever reason. And it sounds like a grim thing.
As long as we make it to next Monday.
Yo, like it makes it sounds grim, but it's actually not. It's actually really beautiful, man, because it forces you to like have context on just how valuable time is, man. And I think that's why I'm so subconsciously like intentional about like attention and where it's going and like I don't know, man. It's like not something I control. I think I just subconsciously like I want to wring out like all I can get, from life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like where my framing comes in on all that stuff. Again, it's not sad or grim. I think it's probably like a superpower of mine, because it's given me a lot of context and perspective at a young age that I think a lot of people don't get.
It's foresight.
It's foresight. Yeah, exactly, man.
At the end of the day, I mean, I guess if you live the rest of your life just like super scared about it, and then you end up you end up falling into 50%, then you just kind of wasted life just being fearful,
Exactly.
I didn't know that, man. I think I had mentioned it before that I feel like prior to this, it was hard for me to gauge like where your emotions drive you and all this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man. When I kind of first heard about that, I was just thinking like, oh, okay, there it is.
There it is.
There's the emotion.
Yeah.
There's where all the heart is. Not
Yeah.
to say that you're like a cold, but you're very analytical. You're very like
Mhm.
data driven and like objective,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
And knowing that there's something like that, like there's like such a certainty in everything that you do, not knowing that there's like a cloud of uncertainty that can happen within your 40s.
Yeah, it's crazy. Man.
That's cool. That I love that like you kind of do this without fear in your heart. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, how can you have an impact if you're just kind of being shaky-legged around everything? Like everywhere you go, you're like trembling. It's hard.
Yeah, for real, man. I think you gotta like, my dad told me once, like, he's like, sometimes when life gives you chaos, like, all you can do is just laugh. Just like laugh in its face, like just kind of like, all right, like this is what's up. This is what it is. Like I'm gonna just, be intentional about what I want to do or whatever it is.
It was that same meditative state that you are in yoga, right? In a painful,
Yeah.
painful position, all you do is just kind of accept it.
Kind of just sit there and like relax into it.
Just gotta be intentional with life.
Yeah, I think so, man.
Is that the biggest value that you think you can just like always try to present to someone? And then you obviously go down the rabbit hole of project management and everything, but like your whole vision is like, I want people to just be more intentional. And like if I can spread that message, then I'm succeeding at my journey.
Yeah, I think like I think a lot of people have not taken the time to really sit down and think about like what's important to you. Like literally make a list of like here are my values or like here's what's important to me. It sounds cheesy and it sounds like kind of trite, but I think again, some of the most successful people I've ever met in my life have done this.
Yeah.
They've sat down and said what's important to me and they've defined it and then they've designed a lifestyle around that. And to me, I think if I can help people do that, that's everything, man. Like if I can help people discover and define like what's important to them, and then help them figure out like what projects do I want to pursue, what habits do I need to pursue, what ideas, what books, what it's all got to fit through this filter of like your value system. Um, that's like I don't know, that's like everything for me, man. I think that's kind of the framing that I live by and that I hope to help people sort of like you know
And if you don't think that's valuable, then take a look in the mirror and see if you're happy with where you're at. If you want to
Yeah.
scoff at the whole idea of like listing down what matters, see where you're at. I mean, maybe you might be good, maybe you might be happy. I know that I've gone ahead and done that, and I've applied a lot of that to myself. And I think over the last couple of years, it's really shaped out. So whenever you talk, I always try to listen because you always be saying stuff that like I've tried to work on through the last 2 years, and I've seen
Yeah.
results out of.
Thanks, man.
So I appreciate it.
And I'm not like at the end of the day, like I really don't know shit, man. I just know like what I've figured out through my own experience.
Yeah, and you pass it along, and whoever can grasp some value out of it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it all. Like you, like one thing I love is that you also don't try to come off as like somebody who's like speaking from fact. It's more like experience. Like, hey, this worked for me.
Yeah.
You can try it out. And I think that's the best thing that like people can do is,
Yeah.
teach without, unless it's like math. Like there's factual stuff to
For
math,
sure,
for example.
sure.
But like, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
If you're trying to teach values to people, you got to understand that they need to Frankenstein it from all the other stuff that they hear along the way and shape it out to what they need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, man.
Shit, man. Well, I think that's about it for this episode.
Yeah, man.
I wanted to make sure that I close off with like learning a little bit something more on the deeper end. But
Yeah.
yo, I appreciate your time. I love that you came and sat down. I know that you do a lot of shit, man. So I really do appreciate you finding the time to like chat it up with me and D. But yo, that's Gabe Fernandez, man. Like, if you guys have any projects, anything that you're working on in life and you need structure, like, this is what he's been learning how to do and just developing that skill set. And there's a long background of stuff that helps him be good at that. And, man, I can't wait. Like we said, this is one of the first episodes we film. And I can't wait to have more conversations where I just learn about new ways of approaching life, approaching career and everything. So, hey, yo, like I said, man, we got D over here behind the cameras. My name is Evan. We're MF Pearl, and you just sat through an episode of Live at MFHQ. We'll see you on the next one.